My family humiliated me at a party because they adopted me, but later I found out the news that changed my life. I wasn't expecting anything when the group text came in. Just a quiet Wednesday afternoon, my only day off after 4 straight shifts at the hospital. I'd barely sat down with my tea when the notification popped up. Dinner at Moro's. 7 p.m. Big news. It was from my mother, or, more specifically, Carla. That's what I'd come to call her in my head, even if my mouth still said Mom. The message had been sent to the family group chat, which, to be honest, I usually muted. I wasn't the first one they reached out to. I was often the last. No extra context. No follow-up. Just those 2 lines. Big news. Something about those words made me pause. Not just the content, but the tone. Like they wanted me to ask questions. Like they needed me to be curious. And even though I told myself not to overthink it, I couldn't help but feel like it was meant for me to read. I stared at it for a long time. I told myself it was probably something simple. Maybe my sister had landed a new job, or they were selling the lake house. But something about it felt off. Like I was being invited to an event that was already halfway over. Still, I went. Because even after everything, they were still my family, right? I arrived just before sunset. Moro's Bistro sat at the edge of town, one of those places that tried to be rustic and elegant at the same time, white stone, string lights, menus that changed daily. I parked toward the back, adjusted my wrinkled scrubs in the mirror, and tried to smooth down my hair. I hadn't had time to change. My shift ended late, as usual. A code blue right before handoff had eaten up my final hour. I barely made it out the door before rushing over. No time to eat. No time to breathe. But part of me was hopeful. Hopeful that maybe, this time, I wouldn't feel like an outsider. I stepped inside, heart tight, and followed the hostess to the private dining room. I could hear the laughter before I turned the corner, bright, easy, familiar. Then I saw them. My father, Douglas, standing at the head of the table, arms crossed, nodding at something someone said. My younger sister, Mallory, radiant as ever, her blonde hair curled, dress perfectly ironed, a glass of wine tilted in her hand like she belonged in a magazine. My mom, Carla, sitting at the far end, grinning so wide it didn't look real. Even Grandpa Harlan was there. Everyone. Except me. No one looked up. No one stopped. And then I saw it. A banner, gaudy and glittery, stretched across the back wall above the table. Congratulations to our real daughter. I froze. The words didn't make sense. My stomach dropped. Carla raised her glass without skipping a beat. Oh good, you made it. We already started. Mallory turned toward me, eyes scanning my scrubs with a smirk. Didn't have time to change? I forced a small smile. Just got off work. I stood there, unsure where to go. No seat was left open. No one made space. The waiter eventually pulled a chair from the hallway and tucked it at the far end, barely part of the group. I sat down slowly, trying to shrink myself into invisibility. I couldn't stop staring at that banner. Our real daughter. Who was it for? I knew the answer. I just didn't want to believe it. Carla lifted her glass again and smiled, almost theatrically. To Mallory, she said, her voice full of ceremony. Our real daughter. We finally have something to celebrate. Everyone clapped and laughed and raised their drinks, except me. Mallory giggled and leaned forward. Okay, I'll tell it. I wasn't going to say anything, but this is just too good. She paused for dramatic effect, then continued. I did one of those home DNA kits just for fun. And it turns out, I'm not adopted. I'm actually Mom and Dad's biological daughter. Cheers. More laughter. Douglas looked genuinely moved. His eyes glistened. Carla reached over and touched his arm with the tenderness I'd never seen directed at me. I sat motionless, heart pounding. But, wait, I said, voice barely above a whisper, what does that mean about me? The table went quiet for the first time. Carla gave a shrug that looked rehearsed. Well, honey, you came from the same process. It was complicated back then. Fertility clinics weren't always precise. Things happened. Mallory added, laughing. Basically, there was a mix-up. I'm theirs. You might be someone else's. Wild, right? She said it like it was a joke. Like it didn't cut bone deep. I sat there frozen, gripping the edge of the table, trying not to cry. No one apologized. No one said anything kind. And just when I thought I couldn't feel more invisible, the waiter came over. He didn't address anyone else. Just me. The owner asked me to give you this, he said, handing me a sealed envelope. My name, Nora, was handwritten across the front. Simple. Black ink. And in that moment, everything changed. The envelope was warm from being in my pocket. I hadn't let it go since the waiter handed it to me. My name, Nora, stood out against the soft cream paper like it had been waiting for me all this time. Written in slanted, careful handwriting. Familiar, but not recent. I didn't open it inside the restaurant. I couldn't. They were still laughing, still celebrating like everything was normal. Like they hadn't just erased me from the table with one glittery banner and a glass of Chardonnay. I walked out without another word. No one followed. No one asked if I was okay. I stood outside under a flickering street lamp, the early spring air cool against my skin, and slowly broke the seal. Inside was a folded letter, aged at the edges like it had been waiting longer than I'd been alive. And the moment I saw the handwriting inside, I knew. It was Grandpa Harlan. I hadn't seen his writing in years, not since I was a little girl, when he used to send me birthday cards with old Kennedy half-dollars taped inside. He'd stopped sending them after I turned 11. Or maybe now I knew he hadn't stopped. Maybe someone else had made sure they never got to me. I sat down on a cold concrete bench outside the restaurant, heart in my throat, and started to read. Dear Nora. If this letter has found its way to you, it means the truth has finally begun to surface, or at least enough of it to hurt. But not enough to explain. And you deserve the whole truth. You were never supposed to end up in that house. I've carried that knowledge with me for decades. Quietly. Jill Tilly. Hoping one day I could do something about it. Your mother, your real mother, was my daughter's best friend. Her name was Elena Moore. She was strong. Stubborn. Brilliant. She wanted you more than anything. And she loved you from the second you came into this world. But she died in a car crash when you were just a baby. After the funeral, Carla told us she would take you in. She said it was what Elena had wanted, that she couldn't bear to see you placed with strangers. We believed her. I believed her. But as the years passed, I saw the difference. You didn't just live in that house. You drifted in it. She didn't raise you to remember Elena. She raised you to forget her. To forget who you were. I tried to stay close. I tried to show you warmth when I could. I even fought to take you myself, but Carla insisted. Said I was interfering. Said you needed structure. But the truth was she didn't want Elena's child. She wanted to erase her friend's memory. And you were part of that. I stopped reading, the letter shaking in my hands. My mind was spiraling. Elena. She had a name. My mother. My real mother. I looked up toward the windows of the restaurant, still lit with laughter and silverware and stories that had never included me. They weren't my family. They had never been, not truly. And I had never been meant to sit at that table. The letter continued. I kept Elena's letters. Her journals. Pictures. A few keepsakes from the hospital. I've held on to them for you. Because even if the world tried to forget her, I couldn't. And I knew, one day, neither would you. Come see me. I still live in the old blue house on Elm. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Love. Grandpa Harlan. My chest felt hollow and full all at once. Like someone had taken everything out of me and replaced it with something more real. A name. A face. A truth. I didn't go back inside the restaurant. I didn't look back. I got in my car, started the engine with shaking hands, and made the 15-minute drive I hadn't made in years. His porch light was already on when I pulled up. Just like it always had been when I was younger. When he'd sit on the front swing, reading the newspaper or sipping sweet tea, nodding to the neighbors as they walked by. Now, he was sitting there waiting. Hands clasped. Still. Silent. I stepped out slowly, unsure of what to say. But he stood up, opened his arms, and without a word, I walked into them. He held me like he'd never wanted to let me go in the first place. When he pulled back, his eyes were glassy, but steady. I'm sorry it had to happen this way, he said. But I'm not sorry you finally know. Inside the house, time had frozen. The same rugs. The same leaning lamp. The smell of cedar and newspaper. But now, it felt like mine. He led me to the living room and sat me down in front of a small wooden box. He opened it gently. Inside were dozens of envelopes, photographs, a ribbon, a tiny silver locket. "I saved everything I could," he said. "For you." I picked up the photo on top. A hospital room. A woman, Elena, holding a newborn baby. Me. She had the same dark eyes as me. The same slope to her smile. Her face was soft. Joyful. And I knew her. Not from memory. Not from dreams. But I knew her. In the way you know your own name. I sat there on the couch, surrounded by pieces of a life I'd been stolen from, letters written in her voice, songs she'd written while pregnant, pages from a journal where she'd documented every flutter, every hope. My hands shook. My eyes blurred. But I kept turning each page, devouring every detail. And with every word, the image of Carla faded. And the image of my mother, Elena Moore, came into focus. "I want to know everything," I whispered. Harlan smiled gently. "Then we start now." That night at Grandpa Harlan's house changed everything. We stayed up talking until the sky started to shift from deep navy to gray. He showed me more letters, ones my mother had written to me during her pregnancy, and some after I was born. She wrote about the lullabies she sang to me, how she could feel me kick whenever she read poetry aloud, how she used to rest her hands on her belly and tell me, "You're already so loved." She called me Nori in those letters. The nickname was simple, soft, and real. Not a label like the older one, or the quiet one, or the responsible one. Just Nori. And every line from her felt like a key unlocking something in me I hadn't realized had been locked away. By morning, I was changed. I had answers now. Not just about where I came from, but about why I'd always felt like I was standing outside, peering in through glass. Why holidays felt like performances. Why my birthday was always an afterthought. Why I learned early how to bake my own cake and wrap my own presents. It wasn't me. I wasn't broken. I wasn't unlovable. I wasn't invisible. I was just never theirs. And they knew it. Maybe not from the very beginning, but at some point, when the traits didn't match, when the memories didn't line up, when the affection never flowed naturally, they must have known. But instead of telling me the truth, they decided to pretend. And eventually, they stopped pretending altogether. 3 days later, I stood in front of the courthouse with paperwork in my hand and nerves rattling in my chest. I had filled out every form, signed every line. I was ready to reclaim my name. Not the one I'd been assigned. The one I was meant to carry all along. Nora Moore. When the clerk called me forward, I said it aloud for the first time, not as a question, not as a hope. As a fact. Nora Moore. That's me. And something settled inside me like dust finding its place after a long storm. I moved into Harlan's guest room that same week. It was small, cozy, with pale blue curtains and a worn quilt over the bed. Photos of Elena, my mother, hung on the walls. Her smile seemed to follow me from room to room. I bought a small keyboard and set it up by the window. She'd been a music teacher, Harlan told me. Played piano, sang, even composed short lullabies. I found a few of her handwritten sheets tucked into an envelope in the wooden box. Now, when the house was quiet, I sat by the window and played her songs, trying to imagine how she would have sung them to me, how her voice might have sounded on quiet nights with just the two of us. Sometimes, I sang the words aloud. And the house, for the first time, felt full. Work didn't stop, of course. The hospital still needed hands and hearts, and I was still a nurse. But even there, I moved differently. I laughed more. I listened more deeply. I began mentoring new hires, young nurses just finding their way. Somehow, even in the chaos, I felt calmer. Because I wasn't carrying the weight of who I wasn't anymore. I was learning who I really was. I didn't call Carla. Or Douglas. I didn't need to. Their silence after the dinner said everything I needed to know. No apology. No explanation. Just a message from Mallory, sent a few days later. I didn't realize it would hit you like that. It was just a surprise for me. Not meant to hurt you. I read it twice. I didn't reply. What could I say that would make someone like her understand the depth of what she'd stolen? The life she'd been handed, the love she'd soaked up without ever noticing what was missing for me? Letting them back in would be like opening the door to a burning house. And I had just started rebuilding my foundation. Every day, Harlan and I peeled back another layer. He showed me Elena's favorite books, her college notebooks, the tiny pressed flowers she kept in her violin case. She was going to name you Nora, he said once. But she liked the H at the end. said it felt strong. I smiled. It does. He taught me how to make her favorite lentil soup, how she used to sing while she cooked, how she loved the rain. We built routines. Shared meals. Watched old home videos on his dusty VCR. We found each other in the pieces left behind. One night, I asked him why he waited so long to tell me. His eyes dropped to his hands, and he exhaled slowly. Because I was scared, he admitted. I thought maybe they'd change. Maybe they'd grow into the kind of people who'd do right by you. And if I interfered too much, maybe it would backfire and hurt you worse. He looked up, eyes full of years of regret. I didn't realize they were hurting you anyway. I reached over and covered his hand with mine. You didn't abandon me. You waited for the right time. You saved everything. You gave me her back. His voice cracked. She would have been so proud of you. And for the first time in my life, I believed it. Spring melted into early summer, and the days began to stretch out longer, warmer. Grandpa Harlan and I fell into a rhythm. Morning coffee at the kitchen table. Afternoons on the porch swing. Evenings spent sorting through memories. We were rebuilding, quietly, steadily. And for the first time, it wasn't one-sided. This wasn't me chasing scraps of love. This was mutual. This was real. The Moore name became more than paperwork. It became my identity. I introduced myself as Nora Moore at work, at the bank, even when I bumped into old classmates at the grocery store. The first few times, it felt surreal. Like trying on a coat that somehow already fit perfectly. But each time I said it, I felt something click into place. This is who I am. Not who they told me to be. I never went back to Carla and Douglas's house. Not even to collect old things. Harlan offered to help me retrieve anything I wanted, but I told him. There's nothing there I need. Not the trophies that were never admired. Not the pictures I was never centered in. Not the hand-me-down memories of a life I was only ever borrowing. That house never felt like home. It was a shelter, never a sanctuary. Mallory texted twice more. I think you're being dramatic. It's not my fault how things turned out. I blocked her after that. Not out of bitterness. But because peace doesn't grow where resentment is watered. And I had no more energy to spend proving my pain was real. Instead, I planted new roots. I started attending a weekly piano circle at the community center, nothing fancy, just locals who gathered to play, learn, and listen. I brought one of my mother's lullabies one night. I played it slow, hesitantly. Afterward, a woman with silver hair said, "That sounded like something a mother would sing to a child." And I smiled. She did. Back at the hospital, things changed too. One of the newer nurses, Carly, asked if I'd be interested in mentoring her. "I've noticed the way you handle patients," she said. "And the way you carry yourself. It's like you've figured something out that the rest of us haven't." I almost laughed. If only she knew. But I nodded. I'd be happy to. One afternoon, while Harlan was napping, I found another letter tucked inside an old book Elena had kept. It wasn't addressed to me. It was a note she'd written to herself, scribbled in a margin between pages of sheet music. If anything ever happens to me, please let her know she was the best thing I ever did. I ran my hand over the ink. Not a will. Not a legal document. Just the purest kind of truth. I kept it in my wallet after that. A note from the past, reminding me who I was when I started to forget. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have looked like if Elena had lived. If I'd grown up learning music beside her, baking cookies on rainy days, calling her mom with a voice full of love instead of habit. But I've stopped asking what if as much. Because I know who I am now. I know who loved me. I know who chose me. And that's more than some people ever get. One evening, I stood on the porch with Harlan as the sun sank low behind the trees. I still feel like I'm piecing it all together, I told him. He rocked gently in the swing beside me. You'll keep piecing it for the rest of your life. The important thing is, you're building something honest now. I nodded. I don't want to be angry anymore. You don't have to be, he said. But you can be proud. You came through something heavy, Nora. And you didn't let it bury you. You built a light out of it. I looked out over the quiet street. The porch light buzzed softly overhead. Then I guess I'll leave it on, I whispered. For the person I'm still becoming. And if you're reading this, if you've ever felt like the outsider at your own table, the forgotten name in the family photo, the one who never quite fit. This part is for you. You are not invisible. You are not wrong for asking to be seen. And you are not less because someone else failed to recognize your light. Let them sit at their table. You'll build your own. Stronger. Softer. Real. And when you do, leave the light on. Not for them. For you. Thank you for watching the video. Like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.